Welcome to Mind Harmony Lab. We interpret Western spirituality and philosophy from a unique Eastern perspective. In our previous biblical episodes, we've explored the original consciousness of Genesis and Eden. What we've discovered stands in subtle yet profound contrast to modern Western civilization. The original biblical worldview is living, holistic, and unified. But Western culture is built on strict rationality, fixed rules, and layered logical systems. This fundamental contrast raises a critical question: where does this divide come from? In this episode, we dive straight into the core of the problem, rationality itself, and unpack how it quietly creates duality, inner division, and endless social polarization. First, let's clarify one key point. Rationality itself is not evil, nor is it wrong. It is a practical tool, a natural fruit of human consciousness. It serves us well in many ways, but it is never ultimate. The real danger is not rationality, but absolutizing rationality. We mistakenly take a temporary tool as our fundamental root, a partial perspective as the only truth, and a fleeting logical framework as eternal reality. Even the greatest scientific breakthroughs do not come from rigid, step-by-step reasoning. They emerge from intuitive insight that transcends fixed rational thinking. This is exactly the symbolism of the tree's fruit in Eden. Different life experiences and perspectives grow different forms of rationality, each bearing its own fruit. Yet we must remember, the fruit is never the ground. The ground is Eden, our original, whole, unbroken source of life. Most human suffering comes from chasing countless fruits while forgetting the steady ground beneath our feet. We have long misunderstood the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It does not speak of moral sin or divine punishment. Its true meaning is far deeper. It marks the birth of dualistic separation in human consciousness. Through constant rationalization, we turn flexible viewpoints into rigid knowledge, fixed definitions, and unshakable truths. This hardened cognitive boundary is the quiet, unseen spiritual fall. Once the mind locks itself into a fixed system, returning to original wholeness becomes incredibly difficult. This perfectly explains why group polarization and cultural division have become such a defining trait of Western civilization. Western society is rooted in strict logic, precise definition, rigorous debate, and systematic frameworks. What begins as a strength easily turns into a trap. Partial reasoning is elevated to absolute doctrine, creating endless conflict and opposition. On the surface, we see ideological clashes and social splitting. But at the root, all of this stems from the same inner human confusion. Human beings argue like children debating which fruit tastes the sweetest. Everyone holds one fragment of truth, yet claims to possess the whole truth. We forget the original ground, Eden's pure golden foundation and unceasing river of life. It nurtures all fruits equally, with no preference, no bias, no exclusion. The source is always whole, balanced, and unchanging. This dualistic fruit is uniquely deceptive. It tastes sweet to the mind. It feels logically flawless. It fully convinces us that its perspective is the only valid one. From this subtle attraction, our consciousness drifts away from its origin. We begin to search outward, validate outward, and chase outward without end. Trapped in narrow, partial views, we lose sight of the full picture. Naturally, division, judgment, and inner conflict follow. We refuse to accept a simple truth. Every theory, every worldview, every rational system is just a seasonal fruit, temporary, limited, and destined to fade away. Our inability to embrace limitation and impermanence is the source of most human pain, restlessness, and inner bondage. This is why Western history is filled with clashing philosophies, competing religions, and conflicting social movements. Each one claims to hold the ultimate truth. Yet in reality, each is nothing more than a temporary fruit picked by wandering, ungrounded minds. When one system no longer satisfies us, we abandon it and rush toward the next new framework, once again treating it as absolute truth. This creates an endless cycle of chasing, opposing, and struggling, constantly pulling us further from our original Edenic state. This brings us to the vital question of this episode. How do we return to the original ground without rejecting any fruit? True spiritual return is never about abandoning rationality, knowledge, or human thinking. All of these fruits grow naturally from the soil of consciousness. They're valid, useful, and part of life's natural expression. True freedom does not come from judging which fruit is right or wrong, sweet or bitter. Freedom comes from standing steadily on our original ground. We learn to let every insight ripen naturally, let every framework serve its purpose, and accept that every temporary truth will eventually wither and pass. We no longer trap ourselves in one fixed mindset, one rigid logic, or one exclusive worldview. The fertile ground of the original world never bears only one kind of fruit. The inherent abundance of Eden is destined to grow countless diverse fruits, each unique and valid in its own season. We do not need to argue over which fruit is better or more correct. Instead, we simply use each fruit to nourish our mind and life as it comes, so our inner world never dries up or falls into scarcity. This is the true meaning of abundance in consciousness and creation. We will expand deeply on this hidden truth in our next episode. To abide in Eden is to hold all worldly forms lightly, while firmly rooted in the formless, unchanging source. This is how we transcend duality, end inner and outer polarization, break free from mental bondage, and restore the original wholeness of human consciousness. Thanks for sticking with us to the end. If today's conversation resonated with you, follow and subscribe to Mind Harmony Lab. We explore Western spiritual and philosophical ideas through an Eastern perspective, for every viewpoint holds unique wisdom. Different perspectives inspire and complement one another, helping us clear confusion, release inner suffering, and reconnect with our pure, authentic, whole self that always lives within us. See you in the next episode.